David asked me to remind him to press record. And the other thing I should say before I even start is that I have done a lot of sermons over the years, starting in the late 60s, but I always write them out word for word. I didn't do that this time. I do have notes and things, so we'll see how it goes. So, I'm going to be telling you about an experience that I had on the island of Iona. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about this island. It's a small island. It's about 5 miles long and about 1.5 miles wide. And it's on the very westernmost side of Scotland. And it's famous in Christianity because it's where St. Columba came. This is in the 500s, okay? St. Columba was an Irish cleric who had started all sorts of monasteries in Ireland. And then, it's a long story, but basically he exiled himself for something he did and set sail from Ireland with 12 monks, because he was like an abbot, and said that he had to find a place where he could no longer see Ireland. So they would stop and get out. No, I could still see Ireland. Finally, they came to Iona, and they got to the top of the little hill in Iona, Dun-Ee, which I'll be talking about later, and couldn't see Ireland. This is the place. So he started a monastery there and did all sorts of things. And at that point, Scotland was still not Christian. So he went to the mainland later and founded a whole bunch of abbeys there, and basically is credited with bringing Christianity to Scotland. So this island has been sacred long before Columba got there. The Druids found it sacred. And I'd like to read you a little excerpt from the booklet that we got, because it sort of sets the tone, and it's basically what I found. Centuries before the arrival of St. Columba on Iona in 563, the island had been adopted as a center of religion by sun-worshipping Druids. Like Columba, these priests of the Dark Ages must have sensed something unique in the atmosphere of Iona, a quality that still sets it apart as a spiritual oasis. Perhaps it was the sparkling clarity of its light that appealed to these early mystics, for here the sky seems to open directly to heaven, not only as the sun goes down in incomparable splendor, but throughout any sunny day, when the cloud that hangs over the mainland and Mull, it's an island, miraculously breaks to bathe Iona in light that seems even brighter against the somber, unlit hills of the opposite shore. That sort of sets the tone. But why did I want to go to Iona, and why did Marilyn want to go to Iona? Well, Marilyn wanted to go to Iona because of this children's book and other things, but it is a wonderful book about the man who loved books. And it's about St. Columba, and it has beautiful, beautiful illustrations. But basically, he was so enamored of books that he had to copy them and got in trouble doing that. But anyway, so Marilyn wanted to see this place where St. Columba. I wanted to see this place because I taught art history for many years, and one of the movies back in those days, reel to reel, that I showed was from the Kenneth Clark series on civilization. And in one scene, it opens with him on the island of Iona, standing on the grass, saying these words to this effect. I always love to return to Iona because the veil is so thin here. He's talking about the veil between this world and the next, whatever, that other world which we don't know too much about. But the veil is so thin here. So, anyway, we ended up going because we both had a sabbatical. Well, actually, Marilyn took a sabbatical, and we had 4 months, 2 months in Italy and 2 months in England. And finally, we got up to the north in Scotland and drove from Edinburgh west, and you eventually get to a place where you can get on a car ferry, and it's about a little less than an hour across on the car ferry to get to this big island of Mull. Mull is, to go drive across Mull, it was about 35, 40 miles, depending on which way you go. And it's a one-way road. It is paved, but if you meet a car, you have to pull out in a little pull out and let the other car come, or they have to pull out and let you go by. And then you get to this little town of Fionport. And Fionport then has a ferry, only a passenger ferry, and you take a little mile across to Iona. And there's a small village, very small village. But the main thing are the ruins and so on of various abbeys and things that have been built there over the centuries, going back to the time of Columba in the 500s. So I know that all of us here are on some kind of spiritual path, because otherwise we probably wouldn't stick around and keep coming to this crazy church. And I like this quote of Gandhi's about that path. Gandhi said, "I know the path. It is straight and narrow. It is like the edge of a sword. I rejoice to walk on it. I weep when I slip. God's word is, whoever strives never perishes. I have an implicit faith in that promise. Though, therefore, from my weakness I fail 1,000 times, I shall not lose faith." I think from a fairly early age, that we are kind of sparks of the divine, okay? That life force, the fire that's behind the universe, all creation, everything that is born and lives. But it's one thing to know it intellectually, and it's another thing to experience it more in heart, head and heart. You know, Roy likes to say, gut. Do you have a gut feeling for it? I also like to think of it in terms of right brain and left brain. As an artist, I'm very right brain, that's all. It's kind of woo-woo, and our culture is very left brain, scientific method. Can you prove it? Is it black and white? Oh, wait, can I? No. And that's important. That's part of who we are. But I like to think about those two in balance. And I think most artists kind of lean a little bit more towards the right brain side, and maybe even the heart side. Let's see here, there. Let's see. Oh, yes. So I want to tell you about the experience. So we got over to Iona. We stayed in a really nice B&B. The next morning, we went to the service in the Abbey. The community there, the Iona community, has been there since the mid-30s, and it's a bit like the Taizé community in France, in that it's Protestant. It is not a Catholic. They aren't Catholic brothers and so on, but it's a Church of Scotland, I guess, a Presbyterian sort of. And it definitely has a different flavor, as Polly had talked about previously, than Taizé. But they have a morning service every day and an evening service. And we went to the morning service, and they said, join us today. On Wednesday, we go and do a pilgrimage around the island, and you're welcome to come, and we'll be gone all day and visit various places on the island and tell you about them. So we joined them, and for instance, we went to Martyr Bay. Martyr Bay was where the Vikings raided the island often, and at that point, a great many of the brothers were killed in the Abbot and so on. Who knows what year that was. Another place we went was sort of an old marble quarry, and Marilyn has brought some of the stones from Iona. In the beach, there are just all these wonderful stones, all tumbled and just all different colors, and you know, they're wet, you know, really brings out the color. Another place we went was where the monks actually went and sat and meditated in little sort of, well, they were like almost like little stone igloos, but by then, of course, when we were there, they were just kind of like a foundation. But they encouraged us to each sit in these places and meditate, and that's what we did at each place. They read a little bit of something about that place and then asked us to sit in silence for about 10 minutes. It was a nice way to spend the day. Anyway, the next morning, I woke up early, and it was 4 o'clock. But it's getting light at that point because it's pretty far north and it was July. So I want to read to you what I wrote at the time, because I went up to the top of the hill, a mountain you could call it. They called it Dunee, and it's, you know, several hundred feet, but you up there at the top, you can look out down to the abbey below you, and you can see across to the island of Mull, and off to there's many islands around, and it's quite a lovely place. A little cold because breezy, but here's what I wrote, starting at 5:55 a.m. Awake at 4, fairly light out. Decide to go for a walk and meditate up here, and arrive by 5. So I meditated for about an hour. And when I open my eyes, I notice that there is a major break in the clouds, a horizontal slot or slit between two fronts, somewhat above the northeast horizon. The sun is below it, but light radiates in streams above it, turning some clouds pink. Soon, the sun will rise higher and shine directly through the slot, but it proceeds very slowly, at its own pace. Nearer clouds move by, blocking it, turning pink, moving on. A jagged golden edge for quite a while. Brightness. Is this it? More. An edge of the disk through the clouds. Still more. Illumination. Such light. The hilltop becomes a magic place. The grass is the most incredible green that I've ever seen, with long shadows streaking through. Marilyn tried to get that idea, but it was electric. It was as if this would lit up. Such contrast to the dull gray, almost darkness of the Isle of Mull. Beyond, the light moves. Soon the abbey is bright with light, sharply distinct with shadow. Light on the mountaintop fades. Now Fionport is lit up. Bright green streaks appear across Mull. Now I'm really cold. Is this all a metaphor for illumination, for enlightenment, for the wakefulness for which I continuously yearn? All things pass. Do they change us? Have they left their mark, made a difference? Now the sun is still higher in the sky. The clouds above are more scattered. Patches of light dot both Mull and Iona. I will warm up. Scrambling down the hill, the sheep will turn their heads to watch. There is heat in our room, and breakfast will be waiting. And I finished at 6:30. So what did I learn? Well, at the time you saw what I was thinking about, and as I look back on it, all of those things are true. It was sort of a metaphor for illumination, which comes kind of when we're waiting and really, really want to be more awake. But it comes in God's time, not in our time. And when it does come, it just keeps breaking through and breaking through. That's what was so amazing. It kept changing. But the thing that I remember at the time was I was so impatient. I wanted the sun to come through. Look, there's these clouds and there's these clouds. It should be radiating all over the place. No, it didn't come like I expected. It was way more amazing. So there's a point I want to make here, though. Okay, so God's time is not our time. In other words, sometimes we have to wait a long time. But Jorge said just a couple weeks ago how important it is. If civil disobedience is necessary, then do it now. Okay? That's true too. But God's time is not our time. These are opposites, okay? But at the same time, I believe that a mark of true maturity is the ability to embrace paradox. This is true and this is true. Both are true, but they're opposite, aren't they? We don't have to think of either or, black and white. We can embrace both. So I have 3 points I hope this all leaves in your mind. One is that last one about paradox. Some things that are opposites can be true. I like to think instead of black and white and either or, I like to think of everything on a continuum, okay? But the continuum probably goes around like this and maybe meets somewhere, So that's one point. The other point is a subtle one, but meditation is a pretty good path on the spiritual path. It's not the only way to become enlightened, but it is one that does sort of remind us to keep on plodding along. And so the 3 points are meditation, paradox, and God's time is probably not exactly our time. Thank you.